Hi, everybody. Welcome to Siddhi Sunday, where I'm hoping we can come together to heal, engage in wisdom, guidance, and self awareness on how we can move forward in our life in a healthy way. So, as we're starting this live, I wanted to just give folks some time to hop on. So while folks are coming in, I wanted you guys to start taking a couple of deep breaths. Hi, Mira, good to see you. To take a couple of deep breaths and recognize, what does toxic relationship mean to you? Like, what does this word mean? I know it gets thrown out a lot. People talk about it all the time. What within you and your life, what does toxic mean? And you could jot it down for yourself. If you felt inspired to write it in the comments, you're more than welcome to do that. Because we cannot talk about unhealthy, toxic, in some cases, narcissistic relationships without understanding the implication on our own lives. Like, what does this even mean? So take a few minutes and just think about that. Now, I can say that these types of unhealthy relationships can extend to our work, our communities, our families. And so start, now that you're like, what does this toxic mean? Let us think about the relationships that you have in your life. So just kind of go down. I like to go down my contact list on my phone periodically. I like to take a look and I tune in with my body. Do I experience any dread in these relationships? And then I just tune into that. What is it? How much contact do I have with this person? So again, it's about your relationship with these toxic behaviors, these toxic relationships, and we're going to explore your frustration tolerance around that. Many times, those of us in Middle Eastern communities, our frustration tolerance is very, very, very high. So whenever I'm working with Arab, I always say, let's lower it. We need to lower it, because by the time you're engaged in these very unhealthy, toxic relationships, the impact on your body, it's been years, it will make symptoms more acute. All right. So those are just some of the highlights we're going to talk about around these toxic relationships. So what is toxic behavior? What is it? To me, it's any relationship or attitude or action or dynamic that's unhealthy or have a negative impact on your well-being. And that could be toxic within yourself, your own toxic behaviors, your own attitudes and beliefs towards yourself. So if anyone felt comfortable to share in the chat, like, how would you define toxic behavior? How would you define it? What would be some examples of toxic behavior? So one thing I can offer around this is gaslighting. We know that we talk about that word a lot, and it's when someone psychologically manipulates you over time so that you yourself, you start to doubt your own emotional or mental stability. You start to doubt your own reality. Yes, you start to feel sick around someone. So you may have a visceral reaction when you're around a toxic or an unhealthy environment. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things I want to offer around that is so important is we cannot outrun our nervous system. So a lot of people think when your body is amplified or your body is activated, you feel nauseous, you feel sick, you feel tense, right? People think you can outthink your way through that. No. You got to get the body calm first. You got to get your body regulated first. I do have a workshop if anyone is interested. It's the autonomic nervous system. We have one on November 20th. Check out my website to really understand the relationship between your nervous system and how it impacts your relationships. Now, the more activated your nervous system is, the more you doubt yourself. The more you cannot think clearly what's your stuff from what's the other person's stuff. Make sense? So it's going to be important, again, what I said at the beginning of the live. Understand what is your relationship, you, with all these players in your life or situations. You could be in a work situation that's toxic or unhealthy. Now, for many of us growing up in Arabi families, now I say this with love, I say this with an open heart, that sometimes when we talk about our upbringing, it's not to say they didn't do good things. It's to hold the space for both, that how we engage or the reasons we engage in these toxic behaviors may come from our early childhood messaging and our cultural messages. So what does that mean? We had many cultural expectations. Many of us did. Cultural expectations, our values, our beliefs. We were taught that took precedent, that cultural reality took precedent over our own feelings. Many of us didn't even know, as growing up in Arabi families, where we started and where we began. So you have to remember there's this early conditioning of you doubting what you see, you doubting your own reality from a very young age. Did anyone ever experience that growing up? That you may have felt something and then you go into an Arabi family event and it was negated, minimized, dismissed. Did anybody have that experience? So I'm assuming many of you have had. I know for myself I have. I spent most of my life doubting myself, right? As a result of these dynamics. So from an early age, thank you. Yes, exactly. So now you wonder, you're growing up and you go through life doubting yourself, not being sure of what your needs are, because the needs of the culture usually, if not always, took precedent over your own needs. Let's say as simple as auntie comes over or amto comes over, somebody comes over and you have to give everything to them, even though it was important to you. Okay, so I'm setting this up because we need to understand how these cultural messages and our earlier experiences and how they shape how we move, how we perhaps get sucked into these toxic relationships or these toxic dynamics. Now, we need to understand that in order to say, oh, well, to have that self-compassion. I was raised in this way. We had modeling from our parents that their needs did not take precedent, or maybe you had a narcissistic father, a narcissistic mother. Their needs took precedent over everything. So in order to gain understanding of your early childhood cultural experiences, it's to say, this is what has impacted me today. And that's to really slow yourself down, have that self-compassion and say, okay, this is, now I understand everybody else's needs took precedent over myself. I still move into people pleaser. I still do way too much. way too much and way too soon. That is a recipe for toxic people. I always say, you're this bright light. There's so many within our culture, so many beautiful, bright lights who give and who love. And I say to you, yeah, but remember, bugs are also attracted to that light. So your giving and who you are, which we don't want to change who you are. We want you to use discernment in who you give that energy to. Now, in Adabi families, we are conditioned to give everything of ourselves, particularly to our family. Cultural message: family is everything. And so to abandon our parents or to set boundaries with our siblings or family members can feel very distressing to the body because of these earlier cultural messages. So what do we do with that? I always let everyone know, again, slow down, understand this relationship with your body. If you are going into a situation where there's dread, that's your number one indicator you're not feeling safe. Because when we're dealing with these toxic relationships, safety and connection are compromised. They're compromised. So how do you regain that safety and connection when we're in these toxic environments, particularly in our culture that perhaps we can't escape? We can, but that has significant cultural impacts if we say, I'm cutting you off completely. Arab don't do that. One thing in my practice, what non-Arab therapists tell the Arabi client is just cut these people off. And the Arabi client's like, what? What are you talking about? No way. And I tell the Arabi client, I get it. We don't do that. But how do we modify that? And what can you do when you're in these toxic dynamics? Because it does impact your emotional health. So let's talk about how it impacts your emotional health. The harm that's done. Can't even express to you the harm that's done when you stay in these chronically stressful, toxic relationships. What do we deal with? The toxic person, persistent negativity. They're just, everything is negative, low energy. If you share anything good, they will find something to put it down, and it leaves you depleted. Constant criticism. We come from a culture in general, and again, I always have to repeat this. I say this with a lot of love and open heart. A lot of criticism, and it's nuanced criticism. So it permeates you in a way. They'll just throw out these little one-liners, and you're like, what? This feels yucky. Or they outright criticize you. Just sometimes we have these aunties or ammos or parents that just say the rudest, nastiest things, and they criticize. And if you're not sure of yourself, you're going to internalize that criticism, and it's going to cause a lot of stress. Many of these people are highly manipulative. They know exactly, because of your people pleasing, your so low self-worth, they know you're going to keep wanting more because you need their affirmation. You're going to keep wanting to, I'm good, see me, I'm good. They know that. So they will manipulate you by saying something like, oh, is that all you did? This was okay. And then internally, your nervous system gets inflamed. You go, oh my gosh, I need to please these people. I need to do more. That's exactly what they want you to do. This is why, slow down. Ask yourself, what do I need? And am I clear about what I've done? More often than not, you've done way too much. So it's like, chop whatever you did in half, and you're probably going to be okay. That you probably did more than enough for them. But it starts to impact your self-worth. It starts to impact your confidence. You will start to doubt yourself. And for many of us in our culture, it moves us into over functioning. We start to do too much. Again, because we're trying to get some affirmation, something from them. This can also, when you're dealing with a toxic person, particularly in a romantic partnership, it can lead to behaviors of control, jealousy. Many liars, they lie, they're very dishonest. And that lack of respect. And it can create a hostile environment for you where, again, you don't know where you start and where you begin. Yes, or just negativity. Absolutely. Now, when you're in a chronically negative environment, that may skew how you perceive the world. And it takes a lot of energy from you to be able to move forward or be joyous. When I look around, a lot of times, Al-Arab will tell me, Tiffany, I just can't access that joy. I said, well, that takes a lot of work and you're in a chronically negative environment. So how can you move through that? This is where you know if you're chronically feeling fatigued, drained, stressed, anxious, that's your indicator of the emotional harm in staying in these environments. That could be a work environment. I've seen Arab within our culture. I can say in general, we are some of the most incredible workers. We go above and beyond for our coworkers, our company. We work overtime. We take on those projects. Yet we're overlooked on the promotion. We're not given what we need. We're not, and then you see all these people progressing, and then Hayuna Gadin, and you're saying, what's going on? It's because toxic people in toxic environments know it's a form of control. The more we withhold from you, the more you're going to want to seek that. And that comes from, again, those early childhood experiences of wanting to be affirmed, wanting to be seen, you wanted something from your parents that they just weren't able to give. So then we try and mimic that in these other relationships. And it causes significant emotional harm. So what do we do with that? It's, again, creating an awareness within yourself. And again, so like I said, I go through my contact list on my phone and I go through, how do I feel? Is there a neutrality? Is there dread? Is there negativity? And I take active steps to remove these types of people from my life. Doesn't mean they could be fine, but they may be bad for me. And that's what you need to recognize, that we stay in toxic relationships and situations so much longer than what our nervous system wants, that's why I'm going to encourage you to be actively mindful. And I know it's hard. My friends used to call me the cutoff queen, just to let you guys know, because there was so much distress around me holding these very significant boundaries or cutting off family members. And it took me a long time to say, I make no apologies for that. Because when you set these boundaries and when you hold people accountable, you're going to get a significant amount of pushback and they're going to make you the problem. And this is where the more self-reflection you have on yourself, the more you can stay true to what you know and who you are, they can't rattle that anymore. You're like, okay, yeah, I'm a jerk. Okay, I own it. Because you can't control what their experiences of you. The only thing you can control is how you respond. Now let's talk about, are there any questions so far about the toxic behavior, toxic dynamics? You can call it unhealthy, emotionally immature. I know toxic is such a buzzword now. It's starting to get too much. unhealthy, anything that's not in alignment with you and your well-being. Do we have any questions so far about anything I've discussed, especially within a cultural context? Okay. Whenever you are dealing with a toxic person, I love Dr. Ramani's work. If you guys don't know, Ramani is Ramani. I love her work. She talks about this technique, excuse me, called Don't Go Deep. She is amazing. Don't go deep. When you're dealing with toxic people and toxic or emotionally immature family members, or cousins, or friends, or colleagues, does not matter. You do not go deep. No deep conversations. I say keep it surfacey. It is such a setup for you when you're in a toxic environment to try and emotionally connect with someone who has complete and utter limitations. Bifhamush, they don't understand depth because they're not connected to themselves. So it's like asking a toddler to do calculus. They're not able to do that. So when you ask yourself, don't go deep. The moment you want to connect with them, especially if it's a parent, a mother or father, and you want to connect with them, or even your partner, and you want to share with them your feelings. Is it the toddler asking a toddler to do calculus? Yeah, because it's true. They have no capability of doing that. So deep, the D is don't engage in deep conversations. Find the people in your life that you could share those intimate thoughts were, those deep thoughts. Do not engage. Oh man, I call this kicking the hornet's nest. Every time you engage with this toxic person, think about your own life. Okay, you see the toxic person, you visualize them, and you ask yourself, the moment you engaged with them, what happened? Anybody want to share? What happened? Think about a situation when you're dealing with a toxic person. What happened when you engaged with them? More often than not, they get angry. Yes, they get angry. They get defensive. They will try and negate your reality. They will prevent you from sharing your feelings. They may, right? They will gaslight you to say that wasn't true. All right, so no deep conversations. Do not engage. The biggest one, they prevent you from sharing. That's right. They'll stonewall you. I don't want to talk about it. Arab parents in general, or Arab in general, they're so good at that. They will say, I don't want to talk about it. And then what do? They don't. And then when you try and, but please, I want to talk about it. I'm feeling these feelings, right? You're trying to go deep. You're trying to engage. You're right. And then what happens? They become more entrenched, and then they will completely make you the problem. Now, going deep, the second E is do not explain yourself. If you have a boundary and you are clear on that boundary, you owe nothing or no one anything. And so you don't have to explain yourself. I always say no is a complete sentence. But what do we do specifically as Arab? What do? We over-explain. I'm sorry, I can't do that because, and we go into this explaining. And then what do the other people do? Oh, shift. Oh, do you see? Look at, And then they reinforce that belief. You're not good enough. You're not doing enough. So I say, don't explain yourself. Don't engage. Don't offer too much information. Yeah, that's it. Oh, but why? Blah, blah, blah. You say, well, that's just the way it is. And they will figure it out. The last one to deep is don't take anything personally. I cannot emphasize this enough with toxic people and unhealthy folks, limited human beings who have zero self-awareness and insight, that here you are internalizing it that you're the problem. They do this with everybody. They do this with everybody, not just you. But yet it could feel so personal and so deep. And I want you to remember when you're in that situation, remember this live, remember what I'm telling you. It's like, don't go deep, don't engage, don't explain myself, and do not take this personally. They are who they are. They're in their own swirl. They're in their own mess. And all you can do is say, this is not about me. Again, the only thing you can do is take accountability for how you respond. One of the hardest things, particularly in working with our people within our culture, is, and it hurts me because I know how hard it is, because we have this fierce loyalty to people, this fierce love for people, generosity, is radical acceptance. Radical acceptance. And to understand that when you're in a toxic relationship or in a toxic environment, one of the hardest things to accept is that they are not going to change. And then if you add any substance use, mental health issues, it makes it even that much more challenging. Radical acceptance means I see them, this is who they are, and they are not going to change unless they're willing to change. There's nothing you can do in this dynamic to make them change. No matter how good you are, how generous you are, how loving you are, they are not going to change. And especially when it's a parent, like I'm 50 plus years old, there's still, even with all the work, this part of me that grieves that they're not going to change. They're not going to change. And I have to accept, well, I don't have to do anything, but the healthier thing to do is to accept this is who they are. Well, yes. And when it's your life partner, someone you're married to, yes, part of it is accepting them for who they are. If you are not ready to leave these relationships, I know people cut them off, don't speak to them again, have no contact. It's okay. In some cases, that's absolutely warranted, and you could do that. However, if you're in a marriage and you have children and you want to co-parent, or maybe you don't want to leave your situation, or maybe you stay in the dynamic with your parents or your siblings because that's just who you are. You want family around, because what will happen is if you take those steps for yourself and you cut these toxic people out, that means starting over, being isolated from your community, that sense of belonging with Ihna al-Falasniya, how important it is, or Arab in general, to have this sense of belonging in community. And if you need to save yourself and you have to move out, that means, and move away, that means you do not have this community. And I say, okay, do we need to do the complete no contact? Again, in some cases of severe abuse and your physical safety, okay, yes, that may be warranted. However, in general, we can have what I call low contact, right? What does that mean? You don't engage. again, you go to that deep. You don't engage. You can say hello, how are you? Maybe you see them at the wedding or the funeral. You see them every once in a while. Maybe they were your abuser. I know we don't like to talk about that stuff. And you can be cordial, okay, hello. And then, or you tell that cousin, sit me on the other side of the room. No one needs to know. Low contact. This is one technique at a family gathering. If you're feeling upset or agitated or things are being said, then you can excuse yourself and go to the bathroom. And even you can go to the bathroom, you can keep it moving. Oh, I gotta go. I forgot I needed to do something, and you go do it. Give yourself permission. That's one of the things that is so important for us, is to give yourself permission. When you're in this environment, we were taught as kids, stay in it, suck it up, deal with it. Even though you're in complete distress, you don't have to do that as an adult. So if you want to heal that person inside of you, that little person inside of you that felt so powerless in these dynamics, empower yourself by giving yourself permission to leave. Give yourself, yes, yeah, I'm the dishwasher in the family. Yes, I love that. Because the dishes, it's an acceptable task. Everyone's like, look at you, you're doing the dishes, right? Since I was little, right? Doing the dishes. And then you can pretty much insulate yourself from all the dynamics that are going on. Yes, I love it, washing the dishes. But this is what we're talking about, is low contact. And if you're feeling really distressed, oh, I don't feel well, you leave early. Give yourself permission to leave early. Or you do the touchstone. You go, you show up, hello, how are you? And then you leave. So these are some of the things in how to manage these toxic relationships or unhealthy relationships at work. Because, okay, so those are family situations or even a friend situation. If you don't want to hang out with the toxic negative friend, maybe you're not in the right space, reschedule. Oh, but I can't, I'll disappoint her. Okay. Or him. Yeah, it's okay. Give yourself permission to do that. The first time you do it, you're going to be so anxious and it's going to feel so uncomfortable. And I always tell people, just because something is uncomfortable for us, it does not mean it's not good for us. So sit with the discomfort, breathe through it, tell yourself, this is for my own greater good, to release myself from the control of these toxic dynamics. Because what happens is, over time, your anxiety starts to increase. The depression, the feeling, that dread will start to impact how you see your own life. It is about letting go of doubting yourself and this feeling of unworthiness. Saying, I deserve to feel peace, calm, whole. Now, because a lot of us in these Middle Eastern families, we're constantly being triggered, constantly. And I say, do not shame your triggers. They are there to guide you. They are there to say, pay attention to me. Tiffany, I don't want to have any triggers. Well, sorry, you're a human being. You're going to have triggers. And again, to not pathologize them or make them a problem, but to see them as, okay, I'm feeling butterflies in my stomach. I'm feeling tension in my shoulders. Where else do you guys feel it in your body? Because your body is going to be your first signal that something you're not feeling safe. What are some bodily signals that come up to indicate to you when you're in these toxic environments or work situations or family situations that you're not feeling safe? What are some other examples that people have? Oh yeah, stomach ache. The gut issues within our culture is unbelievable, all the gut issues, and it's tied to that. Yes, anxiety. Yeah, that nervousness in your body. Oh, shortness of breath. Sometimes you ever find before you go into like an event or some situation that your breathing just starts to become shallow. You're not even in there yet, but you're breathing. You're like, yes, very, very normal. Headache. Usually it's a tension headache that feels like a vice around your head like this, usually. And so and it's like that grip around you, because that is the very thing that keeps your body saying, uh-oh, how do I need to seek safety? And sometimes when you're in those environments, you just let them talk. Think about your to-do list. Think about an ocean or a park or a beautiful, as they're talking, you don't need, the toxic person is talking at you. They're not talking with you. So believe me, if you just nod, okay, yeah, and you're thinking about other things or breathing or grounding yourself, they're not even attuned to you enough to recognize you're in distress. So I say, just do that for yourself. Go into your internal world to get your nervous system in that more regulated place. Toxic people, right? They love arguments. They love arguments. They want an argument. They want to make something an issue. It's constant arguments. So they beniku, they nick. And they'll trigger it. They'll nick you, like they'll go, they throw you something. And then usually, if you're not in your grounded space, you will grab it and then throw it back at them. And then you start engaging in this toxic dynamic with them. Oh yeah, they'll raise their voice. I came from a family that they would raise their voices and nobody was saying anything. It was just to try and control whatever narrative the toxic person wanted to spin. And what did the rest of the family do? They would co-sign on that. They would co-sign on that. Also, you're in a toxic environment with the unpredictability of the behavior. So what keeps us engaged is sometimes they're so good. When they're good, they're so good. But then when it's bad, it's not great. So you have to remember when you're dealing with, whether it's a family member or romantic partner, that there's an unpredictability. So that wounded place within you stemming from childhood will hang on to the good moments and say, that's going to happen again. If I just did more, if I just pleased everybody, if I just made everything okay. Well, no, because it's intermittent. It's like you're gambling and you will lose. More often than not, you will lose. And what is the long-term cumulative effect waiting for that little, oh, see me, please see me. Or they give you affirmation. You're like, whoa, that felt so good. However, you're going to be waiting and doing so much. You're going to expend so much more than what you're receiving. So I always say, okay, slow down. Again, slow down. Am I giving more than what I'm receiving? And if the answer is I'm giving more, well then give less. But if I give less, that means I'm a terrible person. No, it just means you're giving less. Now that person, the toxic person, will have a vehement reaction, usually, or a manipulative reaction towards you for slowing down. Oh, what happened to you? You used to be so good. Or, oh, you used to do so much. What happened? And then if you're not sure within yourself, you could go, oh my God, what happened? I'm displeasing this person. I say, no, you're doing exactly what you need to do for you. And you breathe through it. You go, yeah, things have changed. Times have changed. And in fact, you don't even engage in that. You don't even talk to, let's go back to the deep. You don't engage. You don't explain yourself. You don't take that comment personally. Yes? Nod. I'm sorry you feel that way. The other piece is this exhaustion, okay? The emotional exhaustion. So many of us within our culture are exhausted. Now, people will, if you have a new baby or there's situations where you're just tired, right? It's going to be hard to discern what's your emotional exhaustion from what day to day. But this level of fatigue, it's not the physical tired, it's the emotional exhaustion by trying to maintain these toxic relationships. And it involves so much effort. I call it the mental, I used to call it when I was married, I used to call it, I was doing mental judo because I was constantly trying to thwart, I don't know if that was judo, but I was trying to constantly protect myself from what was coming. And every time I maneuvered or I shifted, it was so exhausting because nothing I did was ever good enough to change. And I always had to shape myself. Well, maybe if I like this, maybe that will change. Or maybe if I did this, he may react differently. Or maybe if I try and show my parent like a certain way, maybe they will feel better or be happier. And so it takes so much effort when also you're trying to avoid conflict, trying to manage somebody else's moods. Most of us within our culture have intense emotional burnout because it's not just our families, it's our coworkers, our friends, the neighbor, the lady at the grocery store. We're constantly expending all this emotional energy to make other people's lives better, yet in turn, we get very little, if anything, in return. And how do you want to expend your energy? Where do you want to put it? That's all I'm saying is to discern how you do that. This can also lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness. These toxic relationships can make you feel profoundly lonely. And sometimes we're so ashamed. We don't want to share with our family and friends how much we're struggling. Well, because maybe they're the very people that are causing it, but maybe even to our close friends. We don't want to share, hey, this is what's happening to me because we feel so much shame. And all I'm saying is find those, if you really want to move through this, find those supportive people that you can talk to. There's no shame in that. We all struggle. We all struggle. And this social withdrawal and having these toxic people keep you engaged with them versus expanding your world to other people that may be more in alignment with you is just going to continue the sleep disturbances, the headaches, the high blood pressure, your weakened immune system, the anxiety. It only gets worse the more you feel isolated and alone. So talk to somebody, get some support, talk to a therapist. If you can't afford therapy or if you can't do therapy, that's okay. There's got to be somebody that you can talk to, or in the internet, you can also turn to the internet. There's Dr. Ramani is amazing. Dr. Jerry Wise, W-I-S-E, they're on YouTube. I love his work. I love her work. For attachment theory, if you have these attachments, Alan Robarge, Robarge, wonderful. So I know we need to wrap up, and in these toxic relationships, you have to remember, recognize the signs of toxicity in your body. Recognize them, number one. Okay, you're feeling it. This is toxic. Two, set your boundaries. It could be no contact. It could be low contact. Whatever the clear boundary is, deep. Don't go deep. Don't engage. Don't explain yourself, and don't take it personally. Those are also setting boundaries within yourself. Sometimes it's communicating unacceptable behavior, right? Saying, this is not okay for me. Now, they may not, the toxic person rarely, they don't understand that, but sometimes say, this behavior is not okay, and you keep it moving, even if it feels uncomfortable, and it will, until you get really good at it, and then you'll be setting boundaries left and right. But again, you have to have an understanding of your nervous system to be able to regulate it before you can do that. Let's see, prioritizing your self-care. Now, a lot of times people will say, well, what does self-care mean? Okay, whatever it means to you, it means taking time out for yourself to engage in activities that are going to restore you, comfort you. إحنا العرب, we are always do. We're always doing for everything and everybody. Sometimes your body goes, yeah, I just need to lie on the couch. Oh, I'm lazy. And then you go into those negative thought patterns. When you're in these toxic environments and toxic relationships, you need more rest because your nervous system is constantly overactivated. Rest more. If you're depressed and you're lying on the couch and you can't get up, this is where you move more. Go for a walk. Go on, if you can, go on vacation. Take a time out. Get out of the environment because, again, we're constantly getting triggered. Get out of the environment. And if you can't get out of the environment, just the guided meditations to go within and go to places to offer your nervous system some connection. I already mentioned, limit your expectations of these people. Now, I'm at the point where it's like, I say, keep hope alive, because people say, Tiffany, you're kind of negative. No, I'm not. I keep hope alive around these people, maybe one day, and I recognize I have zero expectations. I will always keep hope alive for human beings because that's part of loving humanity, but I also understand how much work it takes to be healthy and whole. I see my client, how much work they do, how much I do on myself. I see my friends who are engaged in, and it takes so much effort. Do you really think these toxic people in your life are going to put forth the effort to change or to heal? Not likely. So this is where you limit your expectations. Because if you have and manage your expectations, have realistic expectations of who they are. Hannah, you said no. No to what? No to which part? Saying no? So this is where you, have no expectations maybe, right? Have no expectations at all. Manage your expectations. They will not change. They absolutely will not change. And that's part of that radical acceptance. But you could say, how can, these are people that love me. These are supposed to be people that love me and care about me. They can only love you. They can only care about you to the degree they have self-reflection and self-awareness of how their behavior impacts you. And if there's no self-reflection, forget it. Move on. Move on in the way of low contact. Manage your expectations. Limit your contact with them. Do not pick up the phone. If you're busy and you're doing something for yourself, they can wait. They can wait. If someone is unsupportive or unkind, you cannot have them see your humanity because they cannot see that within themselves or others. Reduce your expectations because you will be wrought with disappointment, frustration, anger, and that only hurts you. What do they say? It's like drinking your own poison. Seek support from other people. I mentioned that. Confide in trusted friends, family members, a therapist who can offer you perspective on this. You are not crazy. You are not, more often than, oh, I'm over the top, I'm making this a big deal. More often than not, no, you're not. More often than not, you are spot on in what you are seeing, but you keep doubting yourself. Have someone talk to you to validate your feelings and remind you that you are not alone. You're not. Especially in these family dynamics. Now, if you're in a family where everybody is against you and you have nobody to validate that, that's where you go outside. I know talking to certain people, they would say, "That's Tiffany, that's not normal." I was like, really? Families don't do that? Early in my work. I'm like, really? They're like, ooh. You see the Americana, a lot of times, they're like, oh. And I was like, oh, really? Oh, I thought that was normal. Talk to people who can give you a perspective, a healthy one, so that you're not stuck in your perception of the crazy making behavior, the gaslighting behavior, the manipulating behavior. And over time, you won't doubt yourself because you'll have that other person to be your guardrail so that you can go, oh, okay, I'm not losing it. I'm not crazy. Challenge your own negative thoughts. Toxic relationships, as I mentioned before, leave you feeling, they doubt yourself. Remind yourself of your values. Remind yourself of your strengths. Write down everything you do on a weekly basis. Because we tend to minimize the things that we do for these people because they remind you that you're not doing enough. And it's never enough. It's like the bottomless pit. The more you do, the more they want. So this is where to remind yourself of all the things you do and your strengths. You could use journaling, affirmations, and again, regulating your nervous system through massage, through rest, through exercise, through the things that you want to do that's going to make you feel whole. Listening to music, singing, having fun. These are the things, but sometimes I call them fun ruiners. They literally suck the life out of you. And any kind of time you have fun or share something fun, they're the worst. And this is where it's like, don't share with them good news. Don't share with them nothing. Nothing. Because they have this uncanny way to make anything fun like a miserable experience. Because that's who they are. Don't take it personally. But also don't set yourself up by sharing with them anything good in your life. They're like the last person you would share anything good in your life. You want to have all these other people, share with them, people that are going to affirm you, love it. Then you tell the toxic people, oh yeah, I got the promotion, or oh, I'm getting married, or oh, this, or oh, my kid did this. Other than that, don't tell them nothing. Yes, we talked about that. Consider reducing or ending the relationship. And I know within our culture, it's very hard, but I would say reduce. Yeah, they do. They said, yeah, they suck the life out of you. Seek professional help. I always encourage people I have a group of Arabi therapists, Middle Eastern, because I do believe culturally responsive therapy is so important, or finding a therapist that's going to understand all these dynamics. So feel free to DM me. I've got a really good plethora of Arabi therapists kudos to the younger generation for entering the field, because they really get it, and I appreciate that, because back in my day it was just like me and like two other people. The last thing I want to say is focus on building healthy relationships. Start with you. Start with, even if it's one or two people, to surround yourself with people who respect you, support you, uplift you, love you, to counterbalance the effects of the toxic relationship. To help you, what you need, many of us need, is mutual respect and care, so that you have more of a balance. And that requires building healthy relationships with people, perhaps outside of families, outside of work situations. Okay? So thank you all for being on this live today. I hope it was helpful. Please remember to Give yourself that permission to do what is best for you. Try not to doubt yourself. And I wish you all a great day. And I hope to see you next week on City Sunday. And if you have any topics you want to discuss, please DM me, and I'll be more than happy to create a live around that. All right, everybody, have a beautiful day. Oh, please come to our next live. This will be recorded and you will find it on YouTube. So if anybody missed it, go on YouTube. It should be up within the next week or so. You can always revisit it if you needed extra reminders. You can always hop on YouTube and find this live. So hope to see you guys next week. I love you from the bottom of my heart, from my city. Honoring her and the wisdom. I hope you can share that with yourself and with others. Have a good one, everybody.